I'd now like to invite our board chair, Jonathan Alter, to join me in giving the awards. Jonathan is a journalist and author of several best-selling political books, and he will, after the awards, moderate the discussion with the winning writers tonight. Jonathan? The J. Anthony Lukas Book Prize is presented to a book-length work of narrative nonfiction on a topic of American social or political concern that exemplifies the literary grace, commitment to serious research, and social responsibility that characterize the distinguished work of Tony. This year's winner is author and theater director Susan Southard for her book Nagasaki, Life After Nuclear War. The book was also a finalist for the Lukas Work and Project Prize in 2012. Susan, could you join us? Yes. The judge's citation reads, Susan's Nagasaki, Life After Nuclear War will upset you. With lean and powerful prose, she describes the indescribable, taking the reader almost minute by minute through the bombing of Nagasaki and then the aftermath. With thorough, careful research, she exposes a half-century of lies and half-truths about the reasons for the bombing and the results, even denying that radiation poisoning was real. 70 years later, following the lives of survivors, she reaches the final chapter and at last tells the complete story. Without diatribes or polemics, she leaves the reader with a resolve that such a thing must never happen again. Congratulations.
Thank you.
This year's finalist for the J. Anthony Lukas Book Prize is Dale Russakoff for her book, The Prize, Who's in Charge of America's Schools? Dale? The judges write in their citation that Dale powerfully exposes how good intentions go terribly awry after Mark Zuckerberg and his wife pledge $100 million to Newark's distressed public schools. Her engrossing inside account of the convergence of celebrity politicians, a billionaire philanthropist, and an economically deprived community, and of students and teachers struggling with urban poverty is both a searing portrait of the enormous challenges of saving our schools and a masterly work of investigative reporting. Congratulations. The Mark Lynton History Prize is awarded annually to a work of history on any subject that best combines intellectual distinction with felicity of expression. This year's winner is Professor Nikolaus Wachsmann for KL, A History of the Nazi Concentration Camps. He is a professor of modern European history at Birkbeck College in London. Will he please join us? The judge's citation reads, KL is a definitive account of a diabolical institution that evolved and expanded as the Nazis' immediate objectives changed. Drawing on archives in virtually every country occupied by the Third Reich as well as Germany itself, Wachsmann challenges the popular image of the concentration camp and the Holocaust as one and the same. In 1933, the KL's purpose was intimidation, not killing, and it was 1943 before the concentration camp became an integral part of the final solution. Most of the Jews murdered by the Nazis never became inmates because they were either shot elsewhere or sent straight to gas chambers. The majority of prisoners who perished in a concentration camp, from communists, incurables, and gays to conquered Poles and Soviet POWs, were not Jews. The author's greatest achievement is to make the inconceivable palpable. Drawing on thousands of Nazi records and first-person accounts, he lets the victims, and sometimes the victimizers, describe in their own words scene after scene of insufferable suffering. Rarely has anyone combined history from above with history from below to such powerful effect. Congratulations. This year's finalist for the Mark Lynton History Prize is Timothy Snyder's Black Earth, The Holocaust as History and Warning. He is a professor at Yale University. He couldn't be with us tonight, but I share the judge's citation, which reads, "In this bold, provocative new approach to the Holocaust, Timothy Snyder takes the focus off death camps like Auschwitz to explore the Germans' lesser-known, earlier mass murder of millions of Jews in occupied Poland and the Soviet Union. By doing so, he brilliantly illustrates how the Germans' wholesale destruction of political, legal, and social institutions in these areas facilitated the killing of virtually their entire Jewish populations. By contrast, in German-occupied countries that retained their statehood, many, if not most, Jews survived. Snyder's powerful argument that destroying or lessening the role of government institutions opens the door to chaos and violence has profound, unsettling ramifications for our time." Congratulations to him. And finally, the J. Anthony Lucas Work in Progress Award is given to help with the completion of a significant work of nonfiction on a topic of American political or social concern. Steve Luxenberg, who is an editor on leave from the Washington Post, has won the $30,000 prize for his work, Separate, a story of race, ambition, and the battle that brought legal segregation to America. Steve. The judges wrote, "Separate is the little-known story behind Plessy v. Ferguson, the infamous Supreme Court case that made separate but equal the law of the land and gave judicial cover to a half-century of racial discrimination. Generations of scholars have studied the ruling that upheld an 1890 Louisiana law that mandated separate railroad cars for whites and coloreds. Steve's interwoven narrative takes the story in a new direction, providing illuminating answers to fundamental questions. How did it happen? What was it about the time that explains Plessy? Who were the players in this landmark case? Why did Homer Plessy, a fair-skinned Creole from New Orleans, enter a whites-only railroad car so he could be arrested as planned? How could a court with 7 Northern justices come to such an unjust decision? How could separate ever be thought equal? Steve finds answers by looking long and hard at the lives and beliefs of those who are swept up in this landmark case, beginning with the 3 main characters, Justice Henry Billings, who wrote the majority opinion, Justice John Marshall Harlan, one of 2 Southerners on the court who wrote the lone dissent, and white civil rights advocate Albion Tourget, who designed the legal strategy for Plessy. Their story and the parts played by a large supporting cast are the heart of Separate, this rich, complex, and all too human story, replete with ironies and unintended consequences. This is big history, deeply researched, and well told. Congratulations. And the finalist for the Work in Progress Award is journalist Blaire Briody, an editor-at-large for the Fiscal Times, for her work entitled The New Wild West, Black Gold, Fracking, and Life in a North Dakota Boomtown. The judges wrote, Blaire's first-hand account of the impact of the fracking boom on a small Midwestern town is good old-fashioned journalism at its best, hard-hitting and unblinking. Embedded in oil country for months at a time, she reports on the transformation of the town, its Native American neighbors, and the landscape. On the farmers who watched fields they'd worked for generations plowed up, on the thousands of workers, mostly men, holed up in dismal camps. She documents the lawlessness, the prostitution, and the violence toward women that followed in their wake. It's a 21st century reenactment of a story that was all too familiar to 19th century America. And she is doing the nation a service by telling it like it is. They end by saying, she needs to finish the job. No pressure. Congratulations.